What's going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and it is official, E3 2016 has come to a close. It was a week full of huge press conferences, gameplay reveals, trailers, all kinds of specs on new hardware, and all kinds of fun information out of what could be considered the World Series of Gaming. I've done my best to scour the internet. I've reviewed dozens of gameplay trailers, I've watched live streams, I watched all those huge announcements, and I've compiled my personal list of the top 10 best things that came out of E3 this year. Now keep in mind, this is my own personal list. It's perfectly fine if you disagree. Please leave a comment on the video and share your own thoughts. Without further ado, here we go with the countdown. Number 10, the Xbox One S announcement. There have been rumors swirling all over the internet for several months that new consoles would be announced at this year's E3. Right at the beginning of their press conference, Microsoft opened by announcing the Xbox One S. Now, why is this such a great announcement? Well, it's pretty simple. Right now, Microsoft is in second place when it comes to current gen consoles, with Sony's PlayStation 4 vastly outselling them. Microsoft needs a reason for consumers to be buying their console right now, and they did actually present a significant amount of Microsoft exclusive titles coming to their consoles in the next couple of years. So now's the perfect time to jump on and buy a console. It's the perfect time to announce a newer, sleeker model that's 40% smaller, that has a more attractive color, that actually has an internal power supply so you don't have a giant power block sitting on the floor, and a much larger hard drive, all for the same price as what you would normally pay for the original Xbox One at $299 US. Great timing, a great announcement. I can imagine that come this summer, and especially this holiday season, ridiculous amounts of people who only have a PlayStation 4 may be finally heading out to buy the Xbox One, especially with all the great games coming shortly. A great timing for this announcement, and Microsoft did the right thing here. Number 9, Watch Dogs 2. You know, a lot of people were very critical of Watch Dogs a few years back because, number one, the graphics weren't what were originally shown off at E3 2012. It was a major graphical downgrade once it was released. And number two, because the protagonist, Aiden Pierce, was a very stoic, boring kind of hero, and the gameplay was a little bit clunky, including some car driving mechanics that weren't very good, and really just not a fluidity in motion of the main character. So when they showed off Watch Dogs 2 this year, it almost looks like Ubisoft directly responded to all of the criticisms of the original game by having a new protagonist who's very verbose, he's interesting, he has a personality, the complete polar opposite of Aiden Pierce. The combat and the fluidity of motion when it comes to jumping over objects and running and all the kinds of different action that you're going to be doing in the sequel seems to be vastly improved from what was shown off at the press conference. So I am very much positive about this game. I cannot actually wait to play it come November. It looks like they actually, for once, listened to everything that people said and directly responded by improving that game engine. That's an awesome thing, so thumbs up for you, Ubisoft. Number 8, Dead Rising 4. You know, during the launch of the Xbox One, Dead Rising 3 was a launch title, and a lot of people heavily criticized that game for saying it departed too much from the original Dead Rising formula. It was a little bit too easy, didn't have Frank West in it, the graphics weren't what they should have been on a new gen console. There were a lot of valid criticisms. I actually really liked the game, but I kind of found myself in the minority. So when Dead Rising 4 was announced at E3 this year, I was pumped because I really love this franchise. I just love the fact that you can make the most zany weapons, these crazy combos and things in the middle of the streets for huge points. I definitely like Dead Rising, and I was kind of worried that with all the criticisms that the Part 3 received way back when a few years ago, that maybe 4 would never happen. But it is. It's actually coming out this holiday season. Frank West returns, which is freaking awesome. There's a whole new arsenal of crazy, zany weapons, insane vehicles. I mean, just looking at the gameplay trailer and the few people who had the opportunity to capture footage of this game at E3, it looks superb. Let's hope, fingers crossed, that it does kind of fall more in line with the mainstream series. I'm excited, and I hope you are too. Number 7, Friday the 13th, the game. Now this was one that took me completely by surprise. I didn't even know this game was in development, and I watched one session of gameplay and it kind of blew me away. Imagine taking one of the classic slasher horror style movies and turning it almost into a murder simulation where you can either choose to be the crazy supernatural killer himself, Jason Voorhees, or you can be one of the survivors attempting to distract Jason, hide in certain areas, and escape from his murderous hands. I mean, it's just a cool premise. I can't honestly believe that no one actually put the time and effort into something like this previously. Now, I'll be honest here. Does the gameplay look amazing in the graphical department? No, and it actually looks like it could be kind of clunky. At the same time, some of these executions are absolutely gory and brutal, and I fucking love it. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game. Even if this game plays like utter shit, I could still see it being one of the most entertaining games in recent memory. As a horror movie buff, I'm super pumped, and I can't wait to check it out soon. Number 6. Good virtual reality games from Sony's press conference. You know, I've been very critical of virtual reality in the past year, especially with the launch of the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive and all these different things coming out, and people saying it's the wave of the future, to which I always respond, but where are the games that I would want to play on this very expensive investment? And all of a sudden I hear crickets, because the bottom line is, even with all the titles that are available for these, none of them are system sellers. There's absolutely no reason to run out and kind of buy one of those VR setups right now. So when Sony had their press conference this year and they showed off the PlayStation VR and then announced huge blockbuster games that would be exclusives, including Resident Evil 7 being fully playable in virtual reality, Batman Arkham getting a VR kind of demo / game to it, Star Wars going to have some kind of an X-Wing flight simulation. I mean, this is what people wanted to hear. Mainstream franchises, huge major games that are going to be playable in VR, that's what people want. Now, I'm going to be honest with everyone. They even showed a Final Fantasy 15 segment, and it seems to me that these almost kind of seem like they're going to be more like tech demos or very short pieces of gameplay. Like, for example, I bet the Final Fantasy one won't be longer than 30 minutes, but they'll still push it like it's a game when really it's just kind of a tech demo for VR. But you know what? That's okay, because that's the experience I want. Throw me first person into an existing game universe. It's gonna blow me the hell away. That's freaking awesome, and that's what I've been waiting to hear. Good games in VR that I want to play, even if they end up being short. This will at least get people's foot in the door into the VR experience. It's gonna put butts in seats, and I guarantee you that PSVR is gonna be a bestseller. So good on Sony, and I can't wait for October. Number 5, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Finally, after massive amounts of speculation, we've got a new title for the new upcoming Zelda game. Our questions were answered. No, Link will not be female in this game. Yes, it will be open world. And after watching probably about an hour's worth of gameplay of this game over the course of this week, I've determined the following. Nintendo is listening to the consumers, at least when it comes to Zelda, and they're doing their damnedest to modernize the Zelda franchise. I mean, just look at all the things, the modern things that have been added to this game. Loot, a loot system where it actually matters what loot you're finding. It's not just rupees, you're finding swords, you're finding shields, which degrade, and then you can find higher quality ones. You can do all kinds of fast-paced action, like sliding on your shield. The combat seems more refined, the fact that it's open world, and even the people who designed the game have said you can rush to the final boss right at the beginning if you want, if you are really good at parkour and platforming and find maybe some exploits around ways where you don't necessarily have the tools and items needed to get from point A to point B, but that you're gonna lose because you're not gonna have enough health, you're not gonna know what you're doing against the final boss. I mean, that's cool. We've never had a truly open world Zelda game before, and we've really never had a Zelda game with modern gameplay mechanics like, oh my goodness, weather. Wow, true day to night transitions. Imagine that, all in a modern Zelda. I mean, if anything, this really got me pumped for the new Zelda game. I'll be honest though, I'm very skeptical because Nintendo had no information about their new console, the NX. Do I want to buy the NX to play this game on solely? Do I want to just play it on my Wii U? I don't know, but we'll see. At least what they showed of this game was a positive move in the right direction for Nintendo, so good on them for that. Number 4, Persona 5. Well, not a lot of direct capture footage was shown off on the internet this week from E3, but from what I saw, Persona 5 seems to be doing massive amounts of improvements, and that's awesome. Of course, you're going to have the same awesome stylized art style, the quirkiness of the characters, fun dialogue, social links and aspects. You're going to have a little cartoony mascot, and the same kind of cool pop-style music that they've always used. But I noticed significant amounts of improvements when it came to the dungeon crawling. In particular, first of all, dungeons aren't just repetitive grinds anymore, where you just go down cloned hallways and fight generic enemies. No, now there's actually some platforming, some puzzle aspects. The dungeons are different now. That's cool, and that's what it needed to not just be the same kind of JRPG grind as it's been in the past. The combat seamlessly transitions from walking into the dungeon into the actual fight itself and then outward. The combat looks more refined. Everything that I saw, I liked. So I'm really pumped, and of course we finally got the release date for February of 2017. After how many times it got delayed and we just been waiting, we finally got our answer. Awesome. Cannot wait to play this. Atlas, looks like you're doing a great job. Hoping that it's a great game in early 2017. Number 3, Hideo Kojima making a surprise return to game development and presenting his new game at the Sony press conference. Last year was a mess. Hideo Kojima split from Konami on the worst of terms. His entire development team was let go. Metal Gear Solid 5 was released as an unfinished game, and then he was even banned from attending the Game Awards because he was in this weird kind of separation agreement with Konami at the time. We didn't know when we were going to see Mr. Kojima again, but we were all pleasantly surprised when he walked out to the audience at the Sony press conference, and not only that, he presented his new game, Death Stranding, which has Norman Reedus as the main protagonist, just as he was supposed to be in the now canceled Silent Hills project. Wow, what a double whammy. It's awesome news. Now, we have no idea what kind of a game this is going to be yet, but to see Kojima back in the face of game development is awesome. We know he's now partnered with Sony. To see he's already working on a new game, that Norman Reedus, who was so disappointed about not being in Silent Hills, is now in this new game. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope that this game turns out as a finished product. I really liked what I saw in PT besides the insanely cryptic final puzzle, and I want to see more of that. If this is survival horror, great. If not, I'm still excited to see what Kojima's doing next. So good stuff all around. This was a great surprise announcement. Number 2, We Happy Few. I think the thing that might have actually taken most people by surprise wasn't Kojima, but was actually this previously untalked about game called We Happy Few. What a premise, that apparently everyone is kind of under some kind of medication to alter reality and make you think that everything is hunky-dory and nice and rainbows and sparkles and unicorns, when in reality, it's actually not so good. I actually did a little bit more research and found out this game is a what-if scenario where the Nazis won World War II, and in present day, the UK is actually under their control, and the entire populace is forced to take drugs to oppress them and make them think that they're living in a utopian society, when in reality, things are horrible. This game is grim. This game is intriguing. It kind of reminds me a lot of the original BioShock, both in the visuals and the premise of the game, and I cannot wait to play it this summer. The fact that it's actually made by an indie game studio, just from the stuff that I saw in E3 trailers and such, it looks like a AAA release to me. So I cannot wait to check it out. It blew me away. I'm super excited, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Number 1, South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Yeah, if you're a fan of mine, or if you know me, you know that this was probably going to be number 1 on the list. I am a huge fan of South Park, and the original Stick of Truth playthrough that I did a few years ago is one of my favorite of all time. A game that combined the unique comedy and visual style of South Park with traditional turn-based RPG combat. How can you go wrong? This game, The Fractured Butthole, kicks it up a notch by adding in superhero mechanics and improved, more action-based combat engine, although it is still an RPG at its core. And I'm going to be honest, just watching that small amount of stuff that was presented in the Ubisoft press conference, I laughed my ass off. It still retains the humor and all the personality of the South Park television show, and that's what I was afraid of. When you get sequelitis, right? The sequel comes out, and it doesn't necessarily have the greatness or the same feeling as the first game. Just by watching what I saw at this E3 conference, I really feel it's going to be just as good, if not better, than the original game. And to boot, it's coming out in December of this year. Wow! After wondering for how many years, over 2 years, when will it come out? It's coming out by the end of this year during a normally slow time of the year, December. Awesome timing, the perfect time to enjoy a long, drawn-out game. I cannot wait for the Fractured But Whole. I hope that you'll check out my gameplay of it when I do play it later this year. Awesome stuff. Well, that's it for my personal top 10 best picks of E3. What do you think? Did I leave stuff out? Was I right? Was I wrong? I know I left a ton of stuff out to narrow this down to just a 10 list. There was a lot more stuff at E3 that was positive. What do you think? Leave a comment on the video and share your thoughts. And also, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed this countdown style of video, please consider giving it a like here on YouTube, and also check out the video description where there's a link to all of the coverage that I did, both the recaps and my reactions to the press conferences from E3 this year over on my vlogging channel, The King of Hate Vlogs. You can also check out my Amazon Associates link, as well as my Patreon at patreon.com/darksidephil. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and I'll see you for more countdowns in the future. Peace out.